Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Writers Roundtable, a Minnesota Wild edition. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and I am joined in by, of course, Mariah Stark and a new Wild writer at the Hockey Writers, Thomas Morgan. First of all, Thomas, how's it going? Welcome to YouTube. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. How are you? Couldn't really be better. Here to talk about the Wild for Marcus Foligno, Matt Zuccarello, and all the other stuff going on in preseason. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm doing great, and hockey's just a few days. Really, the regular season is a little over a week away, so we're getting down to the wire, and lots of stuff happening around the NHL. Lots of rosters getting pared down, so and contracts being signed, as we're going to talk about. So, Mariah, how's it going?
They ambushed me. That's all I'm gonna say. My anniversary was this weekend, and I'm just like, they signed these. I'm like, are you serious? I'm not even thinking about this right now, and then you ambush me.
Yeah, well, they like doing that sometimes. They're the worst possible time. But yeah, let's get right into it and talking about these two contracts that were signed. And Matt Zuccarello, we'll start with him. He's an older player, and he's getting signed. I mean, it's not a long-term crazy thing, but 2-year extension, no movement clause, and it said 4.125 million for a couple of years. Thomas, what do you think about the deal? I mean, I never like the no movement clauses included because it's really hard to
Yeah.
move these guys. What are your overall thoughts about this deal for Zuccarello?
I personally really love the Zuccarello deal. He has one more year left, and then that 2-year extension is going to kick in. I feel like 4.125 is very fair for what he produces offensively. He's kind of been one of those odd players. Like he was with the Rangers, a little cup of coffee in Dallas, didn't produce as much, and then he got to Minnesota. He's now 36 years old, and he's really producing. He's put up
Mhm.
back to back 61 points, and then I believe he had like 30 goals 1 year as well. Like he's been really good with the Wild. Kaprizov's been a really good compliment to him. Yeah, that Kaprizov Hartman Zuccarello line's been really good. I like the deal. I think and maybe that last year he'll start to move down the lineup and maybe go down to like that third line. But yeah, overall, really good deal, fair price. Can't really complain about it.
Yeah, he's one of those ageless wonders in the NHL. I
Yeah.
got a few of them. I got Joe Pavelski in Dallas. You got Zuccarello in Minnesota, and they're like 30. Well, he's going to be. They're older players, but they're still producing at a clip of like a 25-year-old. So it's pretty
Yeah.
crazy on. But it's all conditioning. It's all different things to kind of keep them in that at that same level. And he doesn't look like he's regressing. He's still playing top line, top power play. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
probably a good deal as well. I mean, it's not overly priced. You're not signing him to a crazy deal. It's only 2 years. Even if he does start regressing, I don't think it's going to be a big drop off. He may
Yeah.
drop to like may drop a little and play in like the middle six maybe. But
Yeah.
even that for 4 million is not too bad. So I'm okay with it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think I read he produced within the top 40, top 50 on the power play last year. So yeah, he's just one of those guys. He puts up the points as he gets older. So maybe this year he'll break his record again. You never know.
Yeah, it's yeah, I like it when I like the young guys producing. I also like it when you get older and they're still doing the same thing too. All right, Mariah, moving over to Marcus Foligno. I know you have mixed feelings on this guy sometimes of what he does on the ice, but uh, he was re-signed as well to an extension. This was a little longer. It's a 4-year extension, no movement clause as well. No movement in the first 2 years, and then a modified no trade clause in this final two. So you can be traded, I guess. It's tough sometimes, even with these a 15 team no trade in 3 years, 3 and 4. $4 million AAV. What are your thoughts about this deal?
So originally, I was a little more for this one than I was Zuccarello, just because Foligno's a little bit younger. But when I thought more about it, it's like, oh, I don't know that I like that. I'll be honest, I felt both contracts were a little bit high in my opinion. But like we were talking in our Slack channel, I was like, I'm kind of probably more of a cheapskate anyway. So I feel like the lower is the better in anyway. So I don't like the 4 years. I don't. Not I was almost ready to have him traded anyway. So then all of a sudden, 4 years, I'm just like, really? You're gonna do this to me? The $4 million is way too high for him.
It's a lot of money. It is. I mean,
Yeah.
for a guy that, I mean, he doesn't play consistent top six. He plays more that middle six, bottom six role for 4 million. I mean, he does bring that physicality and does take a lot of penalties, like you mentioned, a lot in takeaways and in the playoffs this past season 2. I mean, you can't be doing that and being paid 4 million. You can't be doing it. Right? So it's
and we did kind of mention that. I mean, if the cap does go up, it doesn't seem like it's as much anymore. So like the 4 million might be the new whatever. But I'm just like, and then I had to read a quote from Guerin saying, "I'd rather have him on my team than not." And I'm just like, why do you have to say it that way? Because now you're making me even more roller coaster. If he can start scoring again like he did 2 seasons ago when they were all hitting their records, I'll be a little more for it. I don't know that he's going to hit that, but at least do something offensively instead of just hitting people, which is good too, but you need some goals.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in the next 4 years if he does stay the full 4. The thing is, like I said about the no movement, he's going to be a while. He's going to be tough if you do want to move him, because you can't in the first 2 years unless he waives that, which is very rare. These guys do it. I'm not. You hope that he's just going to be really good. You don't even think about doing that. But yeah,
Ask me at the end of the season if he pulls the same stuff again. Then we'll. I'll be like, you better waive that.
We'll see what that happens. All right. Well, they're re-signed. There's another guy that's up for that same thing. Ryan Hartman has been kind of that top line center over the last couple seasons, really. Fits really well with Kaprizov and Zuccarello on that top line. Thomas, I'll start with you. Now that these contracts are signed, what does his contract look like? I mean, it sounds like they do want to re-sign him. Have they kind of set that benchmark? Is it going to be at least 4 million for this guy, or is it going to be more?
I think it's going to be more. You look at a guy like Joel Eriksson-Ek, who's kind of slotted into that second line center role. He signed, I believe it was 5.25 a year for 7 or 8 years. And if Hartman can get back to where he was 2 seasons ago, getting 30 plus goals, 60 plus points, really producing on that first line, I think it is going to be higher. It could be, I think on a 5 or 6 year deal to bring him until like 34, 35, he'll probably, I'd say my prediction would be like maybe 5.5 to 6 million. But honestly, I would see it like, if you look at Hartman's numbers prior to getting to Minnesota, they weren't great. But since he's been in Minnesota, he's kind of been comparable to a guy around the league like a Nazem Kadri, I'd say like Brock Nelson, similar numbers. And those guys are making $6 to $7 million. So yeah, maybe on a shorter term 5 to 6 year deal, he gets like 6.5. On a longer term 7, 8 year deal, he gets a lower AAV. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking. As if you're gonna think he's your number one center moving forward, then you got to kind of pay him like that.
True. And they haven't had a real top line center for a long time. I can't even remember who that was. Probably would Zach Parise kind of fit that? I don't know.
Koivu, I think, was in that position for a long time, but I don't know that he actually fit that role.
Yeah. So, I mean, they really haven't had anyone in a long time, and Hartman's kind of fit that role. But yeah, 6 million is probably, you're going to at least start with that number. And if it's going to go up than that, we'll see. Mariah, do you agree? Is it around that 6 million? And do you see it being a long-term deal, or is it going to be shorter?
I think he knows what he's worth, because the last time he signed a contract, we got a steal.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, whoa, he signed really low. And then it was like, oh, okay. And I mean, this last season, it was kind of difficult because he did get injured. And you always feel for a player when that happens. But it's like, I think they have to start there because he's gonna push, and I don't blame him. When a player knows their worth, they have to advocate for themselves to get what they want. So, and I get that. Sometimes we don't agree with it, but it is what it is. And kind of like with Zuccarello, it's like you signed him, a big part of it to keep Krill happy.
Yeah.
So if that's what Krill wants, and I feel like Hartman he just fits in with that line was so odd to begin with. It was just like, wait, what? When they put it together, and he's kind of the glue in the middle. I mean, obviously center is the middle, but he's kind of the glue that keeps those two going. And it's just like, I think you have to keep them.
You hope that Marco Rossi, like we've said many times, that Marco Rossi should be the guy that'll take over that top line center role eventually, but it's not right now. So, I mean, Hartman looks like that's the guy, and until Rossi can show that he can take over that role, that's what it's going to be. So you got to pay him the money unless you have another option, and it's going to be around that anyway to sign a free agent or, you try to trade for these guys, they're not available unless you go after a Mark Scheifele in Winnipeg. What do you have to give up to get him is the other question. So not a lot of top line centers on the market, not a lot all the time. So you have one and try to keep him because he already has chemistry with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. So I would just pay him the money. $6 million is not really bad for a top line center either.
And Guerin's a big core guy. Like when he sees the chemistry, he wants to keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I don't blame him.
You could also down the line, if Rossi does move up, you could kind of slot him in onto the wing, and then because he's
kind of fits anywhere.
Yeah.
True.
Maybe Rossi, Kaprizov, Hartman first line. You never know, right? So, and $6 million for a winger isn't bad either.
True.
I like that thought. I want to see that.
That'd be pretty good. All right. Well, let's move on to our training camp wrap up, preseason wrap up, whatever. I know Minnesota, I believe, has some preseason games still left, but as we record this, a couple there. So, but up till now, I mean, it's starting to kind of wrap up, and you're starting to see some roster cuts and stuff like that. Mariah, any storylines that have kind of emerged throughout the preseason? I know we had a preseason, season preview, but now that now the preseason's kind of going, what storylines are you kind of seeing?
The Wild have a lot of really, really, really good prospects that unfortunately will probably not be called up due to cap restraints.
Yeah.
Unless someone gets injured, and God forbid we don't want that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just like, oh my goodness, there's so many names, yet they're all getting sent back down.
Yeah. It's a problem when you have not enough space for these guys, and you're a contending team. You're not going to have space for these guys, unfortunately.
It's kind of a good problem to have, but not.
Yeah. It's not like it's bad sending these guys back. I mean,
for the future, it's good.
For the future, yeah. All right, Thomas, what do you got? Any storylines you're kind of watching or have emerged throughout this preseason here?
The one guy I've really liked so far is Sammy Walker. I mean, he's looked really good as like a more of an offensive player. If you're maybe trying to juggle up that third line from what it's been in the past and make it more of like an offensive third line. I mean, it doesn't really bode well for them since they just extended Marcus Foligno. But I mean, instead of him on the left wing, you have Sammy Walker with Rossi and Frederick Gaudreau, and that could be more of an offensive third line. But I mean, yeah, from the way it's looking, it looks like he's maybe going to be the 13th forward or sent back to Iowa. But I mean, good for the future, right?
Yeah, it's good to have guys that perform in the preseason, and that they're a good option for a call up, and they'll be able to fit in. So, Walker looked. I believe he had some NHL games last season, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah,
a handful. He even scored a goal, I think.
Yeah, so he looked good already. So yeah, he'd be a good option for any injuries, which will happen. They do all the time. So it's good to have those guys in their back pocket. All right, moving to there's always these things in preseason. You start saying, yes, it's preseason, but you start having concerns, especially if it starts getting closer to the regular season, still seeing them. Thomas, do you have any concerns going into the regular season already, kind of seeing how the team is played? Yes, it hasn't been a full lineup, But do you see any kind of concerns that have come out already?
I guess my one concern it might not be everybody's concern, and it might be more of a hot take, would be kind of that second line with Joel Eriksson Ekboldi and then Johansson. I don't really see Johansson performing up to the numbers that he has been in like the small times he's been with the Wild post deadline. Like, I don't think he's going to be that point per game player throughout the 82 game season. So maybe towards the deadline, I mean, the cap restraints are what they are, but they could look for another top six, middle six winger to move him down the lineup, because then it just makes everything deeper. But yeah, I say it would be Marcus Johansson, because he's been around the league. He's like a good middle six guy, but I don't think he could play those like top 6 minutes throughout the whole year.
Yeah, that's something. I mean, small sample size. The end of the season looked really good, but over a full season, we'll see, because he hasn't really performed to that level all season for a long time. So maybe he's fit here, and maybe we'll see it. But we'll have to just wait. All right, Mariah, what do you got? Any concerns coming out yet?
Before I say that, those are fighting words with Tyson. He loves Johansson. My concern, I'm probably way too early on this, but Matt, I think you know what I'm gonna say. Their power play.
Yeah.
Come on, guys, score some goals here. It's preseason. Give us something to.
Yeah.
I was just like, look at this. I'm like, really? We're really gonna play the passing and not shooting game again? I know they're all young guys, most of them right now. We'll see what happens in the next 2 games, but I'm just like, you can't do this again. We have a new power play coach. We're supposed to do this stuff. Come on.
Sometimes it's not the coaching. You can put the best system together, but if they don't want to shoot the puck, it doesn't matter what system you got.
I always say, like, I was just talking about it with my boss the other day. We're like, Kaprizov needs to be a little bit more selfish. It's a good thing to be a little more selfish.
Yeah, I'm used to it in Vancouver. I have too many players that do not shoot enough. This keeps going, running. You got Pettersson doesn't shoot enough. The Sedins didn't shoot enough. Quinn Hughes is finally shooting in the preseason. Maybe he's gotten the message now. All right, let's go to some stars of the preseason so far. Now, probably a lot of young guys, but Thomas, who are your 3 stars of the preseason so far?
Well, I mentioned Sammy Walker already. He's looked really good, so that's definitely one. And then Brock Faber has also looked really good on the back end. He looks stronger. He moves the puck really well. He skates really well, so that could be a potential addition even to the top 4 that will kind of take over Dumba's role. And then Jesper Wallstedt, in the 1 start he's gotten, looked really poised in the net, and he's looked like he's going to be the goalie of the future. Once Fleury potentially retires after this year, it could be Gustafsson, Wallstedt 1-2 for the next couple of years. So those 3 guys would be my guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like Faber, so I'm glad he's doing good in the preseason.
I love Faber. I'm so excited.
All right, Mariah, what do you got? Stars of the preseason.
I'm gonna skip Faber because everybody knows I love him. And I can't wait to see him with Brodian. I'm gonna go Wallstedt again because I'm always so nervous with goalies. Even when we got Fleury, I'm just like, it's Minnesota. What are we gonna do? But he's been phenomenal. Even when I know, like, preseason, there's always the odd man rushes, stuff happens. He stepped up every time that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter Haight, I believe, was really good. Obviously, he's not going to be up this year, but I just consistently heard people talking about him all the time. Even watching the few games I got to watch, it was Haight, hearing his name just over and over. And the other one is Carson Lambos.
Yeah.
Like, he was just ridiculous. And of course, we don't have room for him yet, but I'm excited when he finally comes up too.
Yeah, Lambos was a guy that early on in his draft year, he was actually ranked, supposed to be going the top 5, but kind of some different circumstances, he fell. And then, of course, the Wild grabbed him in the 2nd round. And that was surprising to me because he shouldn't have been drafted in the 2nd round. But I believe it was the 2nd round. I know it wasn't the 1st. But yeah, he's he is very impressive, and I'm glad he's starting to kind of emerge as well, because like I said, he was ranked really high early on in that draft. Same draft, I believe Brent Clark was part of that draft too. So Lambos was supposed to go ahead of him. So okay, let's go to some predictions or prediction for the first game of the season for the Wild. And off the top of my head, who are they playing on the first? I was going to look it up before. Florida. Okay, Mariah, who scores the first goal of the season overall for the Wild? And then what's the result of that game?
Are you really asking me that question? You know who I'm gonna say.
Kaprizov.
Yeah, of course. He did it last year. At least I think it was last year. I'm gonna go. I feel like it's always a high scoring game with Florida. I think. I'm gonna go 5-4 Wild.
All right, 5-4 Wild. Kaprizov with the first goal. Thomas, what do you got?
I'm gonna go Boldy with the first goal. I'm gonna say 4-2. I think Gustafsson has a really good first game.
All right. Well, we'll see if those predictions come true, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't, but they're fun to do.
At least we both pick the Wild win.
Yes, there you go. You don't want to pick a loss in the first game. But yeah, it's we'll see how the Wild do for the first bit of the season, and we'll get together another roundtable next month. I believe sometime next month, as we start getting to see how this team gets together for the first couple months of the season. Because I mean, yes, you can't miss the playoffs in the first month, but you can't really make them. It'll make it harder on you if you have a bad start. You can come back, but most of the time, if you're not in the playoff picture by, is it like American Thanksgiving? Most of the time, you're not going to make it. So you got to have a good start, and we'll see if the Wild can do that. And we'll see under the storylines that kind of come out the first month of the season. But thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Mariah, for coming on another roundtable. Before we get going, Thomas, give everyone your social media where everyone can find your stuff throughout the season here.
Yeah, it's Twitter, Thomas Morgan 49, capital T, capital M, and then Instagram, post all my articles there as well, Thomas.Morgan_49.
All right. And Mariah, same thing.
Mariah E. Stark. That's pretty much it. It's just my name.
All right. Well, make sure you're following the Wild writing team all throughout the season. Takeaways will be after every game. You're going to have also the game day previews before every game as well. So you'll have to be prepared before and after the games throughout the season. So and subscribe to the Minnesota Wild Substack newsletter as well. You'll get all the great stories for the Wild all throughout the week in your inbox. And lots of stuff coming up. And so keep following us. Give this video a like. Throw the comments in the section below. Any questions you want answered on the next roundtable, throw those in there as well, and we'll get to them. But until next time, we'll see you on another episode of the Hockey Writers Roundtable.